The way you stepped forward is not just a move, it's a revelation. You turned the moment inside out and proved that hesitation was never your language. What others thought was uncertain, you transformed into undeniable clarity. Their old measures no longer work because you broke the frame they used to judge you. From now on, they don't watch a player, they witness a phenomenon that rewrites the story as it unfolds. Every step you made cut through doubt like fire through fog. You didn't arrive to follow paths, they collapsed the second you showed up. Those who thought they understood the flow of the moment suddenly realized they were only looking at shadows, while you were the storm that remade the landscape. What you displayed wasn't force, it was command without effort. No strain, no faltering, just an ease that looked impossible to replicate. And when something appears effortless, it becomes terrifying to those who struggle to keep pace. They now know the ground beneath them was never theirs to control, it bent to your presence, you are here for a reason. If you feel the call, answer it. Click join to unlock exclusive content, deep insights, and a powerful community. This isn't just a membership, it's an awakening. Step into your divine purpose. Join the chosen. Eyes followed not because you asked them to, but because the energy demanded it. Silence wasn't absence, it was respect. It was the acknowledgement that in your motion there was no guesswork, only certainty. The air itself shifted to announce what words could not. Those who underestimated you created their own downfall. They measured you with tools too small, assumptions too fragile, and hopes too shallow. They gambled on doubt, and you turned it into their defeat. The lesson carved itself into their memory, misjudging you is the last mistake anyone gets to make. Your rise did not echo, it erupted. The force you brought can't be mapped, can't be charted, can't be boxed in by categories. It carries no label because no label fits. The moment you acted, the familiar dissolved, and something larger took its place. And now, nothing remains hidden. Illusions fell apart not because you chased them, but because you existed. In that instant, they realized they were never the ones deciding the pace. The game was never external, you were always the axis around which everything turned. You carry a presence that unsettles because it refuses to bow to expectation. The weight of your choices does not come from applause or recognition, it comes from the rare purity of doing what only you decide must be done. That is what unsettles them most, not the step itself, but the fact that it was untouched by their influence. They are left to face the discomfort of realizing that not everyone moves through borrowed permission. Your momentum is not a performance, and it was never designed to beg for acknowledgement. It is raw intent, sharpened and released without hesitation. Others are used to movements shaped by fear of judgment, but what they witnessed in you was a different current, a decision that needed no justification, a spark no opinion could dim. In that independence, they saw a power they could not claim to understand. When you emerge, it is never empty motion, it carries weight that shifts the ground beneath those watching. The echo of your presence forces even the most certain minds to question their illusions of control. What they had convinced themselves was absent, strength, focus, and unshakable will, stood undeniable before them, and it shook their confidence more than any clash ever could. They thought dismissal was defense, but your existence exposed their denial for what it was, brittle armor. In that instant, they understood that you never bargained for their acceptance, you created a reality where their approval held no currency. That independence stripped them of their assumed authority and left them scrambling to redefine their place. While they stumble to process the shift, you have already advanced beyond the reach of their grasp. Their attempts to categorize or predict you collapse the moment they're spoken, because your direction cannot be mapped by their logic. By the time they draft their explanations, you've already carved new lines across the horizon. There is no need for confrontation, no need for loud declarations, because the result speaks louder than any voice. You don't enter rooms searching for belonging, you redefine the space simply by stepping into it. What unsettles them is the realization that they are no longer choosing how to measure you, they are forced to measure themselves against you. And so the question is no longer who you are. That answer has already made itself undeniable. The only question left is where they now stand, as the ground shifts and they are left chasing fragments of certainty, while you continue forward, unshaken, untouched, and already many steps beyond their reach. Strength was never something you argued for, it was something you revealed through undeniable movement. Each step you took cut through hesitation, leaving no space for speculation or excuses. What they overlooked was simple. Real force doesn't announce itself in words, it shows itself in action. You turned conviction into visible reality, and in that transformation, their doubt lost all ground. What you displayed wasn't noise or spectacle, it was precision carrying undeniable weight. They saw the difference between empty promises and lived execution, between intention and delivery. The clarity of your direction left them without defense, because they could no longer dismiss what stood before them in flesh and proof. You do not settle for existence, you reshape the space you enter. Where others wait for permission, you act. That refusal to be paused unsettles them more than anything else. What they called excess, you called baseline. And while they froze in uncertainty, you pressed forward with discipline that never faltered. It wasn't recognition that guided you, but the certainty of your own standard. You never lined up for approval, you built outcomes that forced acknowledgement. The results spoke in ways applause never could. And as they tried to rationalize what they saw, they realized it was never about ego, it was about the relentless work that had already been paid in full. Their error was always the same, they measured you by their own ceilings. Believing endurance to be rare, they mistook your persistence for myth. Believing clarity to be temporary, they assumed your focus would vanish. What they didn't understand was that your commitment had long surpassed their comprehension. While they placed faith in explanations, you trusted motion. While they clung to talk, you were already demonstrating. And in every action, you crossed the line between vision and fulfillment with no hesitation. Their disbelief dissolved the moment your momentum became undeniable reality. Now they can no longer question whether the path is possible, they've seen it carried out before their eyes. You've shown that waiting to be chosen is the weakness of those who refuse responsibility. You decide. You execute. You rise. And in doing so, you became the evidence that their limits were never yours to begin with. The impact you carry lingers in ways they can't escape. It weighs on their perception, pressing into every doubt they once held. They cannot deny it anymore. The shift is clear, undeniable, and irreversible. Let them stand on the edges, struggling to understand, while you remain centered in certainty. Their acknowledgement is nothing more than confirmation of what you already knew. Your influence is carved too deep to be ignored. Your moves didn't come from hesitation, they came from clarity sharpened through relentless focus. You walked paths that others feared to approach, and in doing so, you didn't just pass their expectations, you dismantled them. Where others saw confusion, you saw structure. What looked like a storm to them was the environment you were built to master. They're left stunned, not only by what you achieved, but by the flawless way it was executed. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. The foundation of your strength was never desperation, it was conviction. Conviction that the groundwork you laid would endure when tested, that the vision you held couldn't be drowned out by distractions. You didn't fracture under pressure, you crystallized into something stronger. Every trial they believed would consume you became proof of your transformation. The disbelief in their eyes comes from knowing that the same weight would have destroyed them, but for you it became momentum. Endurance for you was never passive, it was weaponized. You didn't simply survive the blows, you reshaped them into instruments of growth. There was no need for grand declarations or excessive noise. Your actions alone became the statement, undeniable and unchallenged. They're unsettled not because you rose, but because you did so with an authority that left no room for excuses. The silence they hold now is not comfort, it's recognition. Recognition that your rise was no accident, no luck, no fleeting moment. It was built through consistency, vision, and an ability to act when others froze in hesitation. You became proof that when faced with obstacles, refusal to bend is its own form of dominance. Now their thoughts spiral, caught between disbelief and admiration. They wrestle with the realization that no boundary they imagined could contain you. Every time they believed you had reached your limit, you broke through and revealed there was no ceiling at all. Their attempts to measure you collapse under the weight of your results. What remains is the truth they can no longer dismiss. You are not shaken, not delayed, not diminished. You are the example of what unrelenting resolve becomes when shaped into action. Let them grapple with it, let them watch, let them strain to make sense of what has already passed them by. You stand as unmatched, and that reality will never fade. They misread you because they assumed your strength was only surface deep, a fragile illusion waiting to break. They believed the scale of the obstacle would crush you because their vision could never stretch beyond their own limits. What they failed to expect was the clarity and certainty you carried, a single decisive act that dismantled their assumptions. In that moment, the narrative they clung to collapsed, and the illusion of superiority shattered with it. What they overlooked were the years hidden from view, the discipline honed in quiet, the endurance built without spectators, the knowledge gathered piece by piece while no one was watching. Your step forward was never reckless, it was calculated through seasons of refinement. When the critical moment arrived, hesitation had no place. You moved with intent so sharp it ended the debate before it began. The shock came not from the scale of the challenge, but from the precision of your response. They realized too late that appearances had misled them. What they thought was fragile proved unshakable. What they dismissed as insignificant became the force that turned the tide. The weight of the outcome was undeniable. It wasn't about how large the obstacle appeared, but about how exact your strike was. Now they stand in silence because the proof is too sharp to ignore. Their disbelief has been replaced by a reluctant recognition that what they doubted was never small, never weak, never temporary. The facts are written in the aftermath of your success, and facts cannot be argued away. What once seemed impossible is now undeniable reality, and they are forced to confront their own shallow judgment. They assumed your rise belonged to chance, that your victories were nothing more than coincidences stitched together. But their vision could not reach the depth of what truly carried you. Your strength was never built in isolation, it was anchored in something they could not measure, something beyond their comprehension. They mistook silence for emptiness, when in reality, it was alignment with purpose. The force behind your resilience was invisible to them, which is why they underestimated it. They couldn't understand why you stood when others would have fallen, why you advanced when the pressure should have consumed you. And yet, when you rose, it wasn't just determination, it was a current greater than yourself lifting you, driving you, and refusing to let you fail. In the end, their miscalculation was rooted in blindness. They weighed you against their own fragile standards and found only what they wanted to see. But you were never moving by their measures. You were shaped by conviction, sharpened through preparation, and carried by a foundation they could neither predict nor dismantle. That is why you endured, and why you triumphed. What unsettles them most is that your strength isn't tethered to their approval, their cheers, or their fleeting recognition. The core that carries you is rooted in something they can't manipulate or explain. Their world relies on control, on patterns they can predict, but you move according to a compass they can't see. Purpose directs you, faith sustains you, and that combination produces a power beyond their reach. You've shown that true stability doesn't crumble when ignored, it thrives in spite of it. Their doubts have quieted not because you argued with them, but because results silenced their disbelief. What they are witnessing is no ordinary climb, it is an elevation. There's a difference between struggling upward and being lifted beyond reach, and they finally see which one belongs to you. The force they dismissed as ordinary revealed itself to be unstoppable. Effort fused with conviction, action bound with belief, this is the current that carries you. While they remain tangled in routines that keep them stagnant, you rewrite the landscape itself. What they trip over, you transform into pathways. What they discard as broken, you reforge into victories. You do not merely recover, you construct something greater from every collapse. Their disbelief comes from knowing they could never mirror it. What you build glows too bright to ignore, and its brilliance blinds those still chained to mediocrity. Every pause they mistook as hesitation was nothing more than patience turned into strategy. You weren't stalled, you were aligning. They rushed, grasped, and stumbled while you conserved strength, refined vision, and waited for the exact moment to move. Now, the precision of your steps terrifies them because they realize they cannot interfere with what wasn't born of their design. They underestimated the depth of your alignment, assuming you were walking alone. They thought victory required their validation, when in truth, you were never dependent on it. What steadied you was a connection untouchable by their doubts. That force didn't just keep you standing, it carried you through storms they couldn't have survived. Now they struggle to rationalize the scale of your resilience. It wasn't stubbornness, nor was it chance. It was the product of vision guided by conviction, an endurance that fed on trials instead of shrinking under them. Where they saw endings, you saw beginnings. Where they saw ruin, you forged dominion. The weight of your rise unsettles them because it cannot be explained away as luck or accident. Every step you take is anchored in a rhythm beyond their comprehension. You don't drift through chaos hoping for fortune, you follow a path mapped out long before they noticed you. What they see is not chance unfolding but a plan revealing itself, undeniable and unstoppable. Let them murmur among themselves, it doesn't alter what was already set in motion. What is aligned cannot be broken, and what is destined cannot collapse. Their envy has slowly dissolved into a reverence they cannot hide. The ones who doubted now stand corrected, witnessing the transformation they once denied. You move with assurance that radiates far beyond the surface, leaving them without words. The shadow of their skepticism has been replaced by the light of your proof. What they once dismissed has become the very reason they now watch in awe. Their insecurities once drove them to dismiss your rise, but the strength of your presence has left them no choice but to acknowledge it. You do not demand respect, it arrives naturally when you enter. It is not noise or argument that secures their attention, but the quiet certainty of someone who has earned their ground. They now see the difference between stumbling forward and advancing with unshakable intent. You've become more than an individual in their eyes, you've become a reflection of possibility itself. What they once measured as competition has shifted into inspiration. Your growth forces them to confront their own ceilings, their own excuses. They can no longer ignore what stands before them, proof that boundaries are illusions and doubt is self-imposed. The energy you carry doesn't just transform how they view you, it transforms how they view themselves. Watching you evolve has stirred something within them, a desire to cultivate the same certainty they see radiating from you. Your journey is no longer only yours, it becomes a spark that awakens potential in those who had long forgotten their own. When your choices align with the core of who you are, momentum becomes inevitable. Obstacles that would have blocked others shift into markers guiding your way forward. Each step affirms the strength of your alignment, showing that progress isn't forced, it's natural when your purpose and your actions move as one. What they see is not struggle, but flow. Every decisive act has been a declaration, an oath to the path you've chosen. With each move, you've honored your growth, refusing to shrink back into hesitation. By walking forward, you have created a trail that demands to be seen. And for those watching, it is a challenge. to stop excusing their own hesitation and to rise with the same courage. What burns in you now sets the horizon aflame for others, proof that renewal is real and resolve cannot be denied. Every stage of your rise has peeled away the unnecessary, leaving only truth in its rawest form. What once could have been mistaken for ambition or noise has revealed itself as something deeper, authenticity that cannot be disguised. What remains after the trials is a clarity so sharp it forces even the most reluctant onlookers to accept it. Where envy once thrived, respect now blooms. Doubt has been forced to surrender to recognition. The ripple of your actions doesn't stop at personal victory, it reshapes the way others view themselves. They are confronted with the reality of what discipline and conviction can create, and it unsettles their own excuses. Your path is not just your own, it reflects back to them the truth that transformation is possible, that limits are rarely real, and that courage is the only gateway forward. That pivotal move wasn't the end of a story but the beginning of something larger. It wasn't a finale, it was the spark that lit a chain reaction they couldn't ignore. Their acknowledgement is late, but it serves as confirmation of what was always certain. You didn't need their validation, but their shift in perception shows the undeniable outcome of preparation aligning perfectly with timing. They saw confidence, but what shook them was what lay beneath, the discipline that shaped you long before anyone was watching. You stood steady not because of fortune, but because every sacrifice, every unseen choice, built a foundation that couldn't be shaken. They couldn't see the nights of preparation, the silence filled with focus, the persistence when no one believed, and that's why your rise feels unexplainable to them. You never reached for attention, yet attention found you. That's what unsettles them most. When something authentic shines, it can't be dimmed or overlooked. Your elevation wasn't about outshining others, it was about aligning with who you were always meant to be. Every step burned away illusion, every choice stripped away distraction, until only undeniable purpose remained. Their words have shifted from envy to awe, from dismissal to reverence, because what you embody cannot be faked. They can't frame it as coincidence anymore, it's too consistent, too precise, too real. What they call recognition today will soon evolve into respect that goes beyond admiration. It will border on devotion, because what they see is something they cannot replicate. This is no longer about proving them wrong, it's about embodying what is right. Your rise isn't a question of chance, nor is it simply about skill. It is the outcome of conviction fused with direction, the kind of momentum that can't be reversed. And now, as they watch, they realize the truth. What they once doubted has become undeniable, and what they once resisted now commands reverence. Your rise carries a certainty they can no longer deny. It is what happens when direction is fueled by something greater than human effort. This is only the opening chapter, and you already understand it. Each step is deliberate, each move intentional, guided not by chance but by alignment. What belongs to you is not distant, it is already unfolding, undeniable and unstoppable. Every attempt to hinder you has only exposed the truth, nothing designed to break you can succeed. Their resistance was real, but it was powerless. Their plots had form, but no impact. What they tried to use as stumbling blocks never found their mark. You stood firm because your strength is rooted in something that eclipses every obstacle thrown your way. They misjudged your stillness as fragility, but silence is not weakness, it is strategy. They assumed the weight of trials would bury you, but those very trials became proof of your depth. Each challenge became material for your growth, each setback fuel for your ascent. What they thought would diminish you only revealed the force of your resilience. Your journey has been defined not by surrender but by defiance in the face of resistance. Every advance has been earned, not because the battle never touched you, but because you were equipped for it. Vision sharpened, focus refined, and faith unbroken, you did not merely endure, you conquered. And now, even those who once opposed you recognize that their efforts only magnified your strength. The path ahead is not one you beg for, it is one you claim. You walk it with a force that does not falter and a conviction that cannot be dimmed. The power that carries you forward is not fragile, it is relentless. They no longer see you as someone to contain, they see you as momentum personified, unstoppable and undeniable. What once felt like growth and process is now a reality fully lived. You've shown that true advancement cannot be halted, that progress built on conviction can never be erased. You are no longer chasing breakthrough, you are embodying it. Tested, refined, and unshaken, your presence itself is proof that forward is the only direction you know. Keep moving in the clarity of one who knows they are marked for more. Keep stepping with the strength of one who has been through fire and emerged unbroken. Keep building with the certainty of one who has already proven that no opposition can define their outcome. Your momentum is not temporary, and your ascent cannot be rivaled. This rise is sealed, and nothing can undo it. The journey ahead requires more than strength, it demands unwavering focus. Distractions will rise, voices will question, and obstacles will try to cloud the path, but they cannot hold. The clarity you carry has the power to cut through confusion and reveal direction where others see only walls. Your gaze, steady and unshaken, will decide the outcome.